became a career firefighter with the Howard County Department of Fire and Rescue Service, the chief of the medical division, or EMS, the unofficial historian of the Howard County Department of Fire and Rescue Services. Over 65,000 digital images and newspaper articles, magazine articles, etc. Episode 24-20, the Marriottsville Choo Boo Boo. I'll be talking about one of the multiple train crashes that have occurred in Howard County over the last 150 years. Over the last 150 years or so, there have been well over 1,000 train accidents along the Howard County border. And I'm sure that with these 1,000 or more train accidents, there have been at least 100 fatalities that have occurred over that time frame. At least one of the accidents in Hanover, along the eastern border of Howard County, the Elk Ridge area, was a mass casualty incident in which 25 individuals were killed and dozens and dozens were injured. And I'll be talking about that at another time frame. Today, I'll be talking about the Marriottsville Choo Boo Boo. And this is in reference to back on February 17th, 1943, a train derailed in downtown Marriottsville, where a rail became separated just as the train was approaching downtown Marriottsville and the actual road crossing, and derailed. Two engines, tender, which carry the water, and coal, because both these engines were steam locomotives, because once again, this is back in 1940 or so. 18 cars derailed, and the train itself had been carrying produce, had also been carrying a bunch of pigs in at least 3 cars. Dozens and dozens of pigs were killed, and even more escaped and had to be rounded up. As you can see, it made headlines. The Sun paper posted the headline that railroad and police probe the Marriottsville train wreck. 3 persons were injured when a doubleheader, meaning 2 locomotives, derailed. An engine and cars crashed into several houses of Marriottsville. Individuals were hurt, although not seriously, but they were hurt, and several of the buildings were severely damaged. Howard County, as you can see, is bordered on 3 sides by railroads. It was the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad back in the day, and is now the CSX Railroad. Along the northern border of Howard County, CSX train tracks go from Frederick and Point Rocks, and then past Marriottsville, past Daniels, and past Ellicott City, finally down to Elk Ridge in Relay. That's one set of tracks. Another set of tracks comes up the southern border, past Laurel, past Jessup, past Elk Ridge, and then merge with the other line in Relay. The incident we'll be talking about today occurred in downtown Marriottsville at the county line with Carroll County. And as you can see, it was in a wooded area. The community of Marriottsville did have probably a dozen or more residences, but there were quite a few less following this particular incident. This is just a image showing the road crossing of Marriottsville Road going over the train track. You can see the sign on the building where it just says Marriottsville. That building was where passengers could board the train. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen, one of the locomotives had fallen over and struck a building. You can see where several cars, rail cars, stacked up on one another in this particular train accident. There was a store adjacent to the tracks, a general store that sustained some damage. You can see broken windows there where debris from the train flew through the air and broke out several of the windows. And on the extreme left-hand side of the image, you can see one of the engines laying up against the building. Just a clear picture of the building. This is the actual building as it is today. The structure that was struck has been remodeled and repurposed, but this is the building that it was actually struck by the train as we see it today. And just another one with the actual crossing, and then looking at the building, not having been there back in 1943, but with the train engine, a locomotive laying up against this building, I am going to surmise that the railroad tracks were at this time almost adjacent to the house And after the incident, sometime after the incident, they removed the tracks to their current location. Actually, there are two rail lines, two tracks, and because of the modern technologies, they could reduce the two tracks to a single track. And again, just looking at the damage done, the building on the left was the one I just showed you that has since been remodeled. It's still there, is in somewhat disrepair. And again, just another image showing the damage done when the various cars were catapulted into some of the structures right next to the rail line. And this particular structure, several individuals were in that building and sustained some minor injuries. But as you can see, the cars were stacked up on one another. I believe a couple of cars were refrigerator cars, and somewhere had a bunch of pigs running around at the same time. Again, just a clear picture of the building and how it was struck and damaged. Newspaper article from the Sun, just again talking about the train and the damage, and the headline was, the train was slightly off their course when it jumped the track due to a split rail and crashed into multiple buildings. And again, just another image showing the one locomotive that is up against the one building that I showed you before. And again, you can see the rail cars stacked up on top of one another. And miraculously, no one was killed, and just several individuals with relatively minor injuries. Another image from a different direction showing the structure, and you can see where some of the cars have almost slid into the building. And in fact, on the backside, I'm sure that the rail cars, box cars, did make contact and probably entered the structure. And again, just another picture of what was then the general store. You can see the gas pump, antiquated gas pump, people standing outside the store, and the broken windows were because of the debris that flew off the train, possibly coal from the tender car that flew off the train and damaged those particular windows. Just another image of some of the other cars that were damaged. You can see on the extreme left-hand side, that little shed. That shed was again used for passengers to have shelter until the passenger train came along. And as you can see, that again, kind of significant accident with cars piling up on one another. Again, firefighters are working to extinguish any small fires amongst the debris that was once a residence of downtown Marriottsville. And that's pretty much it for this particular train crash. Several years later, there was another crash, same location, that was carrying, again, multiple boxcars, but also tanker cars. And there was a significant fire that ensued after that particular train crash. And at a later date posting, I will show you the images that I have of that. As I stated, there's at least one incident in Hanover where there was a passenger train that was involved in an accident, and it ended up being a mass casualty situation with at least 25 individuals killed and multiple people were injured. There were, again, probably over 100, there were over 1,000 accidents on those rail lines. Some were minor and some were major as far as damage, and some took the lives of rural workers and citizens. I will also recap one of the recent fatalities that occurred in Ellicott City. I think it was back in 2012, where two young ladies who were getting ready to go to college and were celebrating their graduation and also celebrating their getting ready to go off to college, were sitting on the Main Street Bridge, railroad bridge, as you enter Ellicott City. And just as luck would have it, or probably bad luck would have it, as they were sitting there, a CSX train heading from Western Maryland to Baltimore was coming by carrying coal. And just as it approached the overpass, it derailed, and several cars were derailed, and one of the rail cars carrying coal tipped over, and the two girls sitting on the edge of the bridge were covered in coal and coal dust, and they were suffocated and subsequently died. I'll go over those particular incidents later on. But there are quite a few incidents involving trains along the borders of Howard County, and I will highlight those in another podcast. Please use your remaining heartbeats wisely and not waste a single precious one.